Hey guys, welcome to Chapter 2, Part 2. Now we're going to be solving expressions and equations with absolute values in them. And we're going to start off right away with an expression where we have to plug in our numbers for our letters. So let's just go ahead and start right away. We have a negative, and now that negative, be careful, is from the equation. And now a is -2 plus, and now here is the absolute value sign, right? These are absolute values. Then 2 is from the equation. C is times 2, and then minus a -2 again. So let's clean this up a little bit. Negative and a negative make a positive, plus the absolute value. 2 times 2 is 4. Now two negatives again make a positive, so it's +2. Finish off the absolute value. Let's simplify what's inside the absolute value. So 2 plus the absolute value of 6. Now the absolute value of a positive number is just positive, so it's 2 plus 6 equals 8 for our final answer. Now let's try 2. Again, let's plug in our numbers, everything that we know right away. So we have 3, and now it's times, right? We're going to times it, times our absolute value. So 3 times a -3 minus 8 times c again, which is 2. Close up the absolute value. Still -3. Let's clean everything we can. So it's 3. Absolute value. 3 times -3 is -9. This turns into -16. Absolute value -3. Clean up what's inside the absolute value. 3 times, now it's -25 inside the absolute value. Close it up, -3. Now we have 3 times, now it's a negative value inside the absolute value. In order to come out, it has to be positive, so it is a positive 25 -3. Now we have to do our order of operations. 3 times 25 is 75 -3. And then final answer is 72. So our final answer for this expression is 72. Next, we are asked to solve the equation and then graph the solution set. Now we have to be careful with these absolute values. Remember, this can give us two different answers. So right away we have f plus 10, and that's going to equal 1. Next, we also have, and I'm going to put it in red, f plus 10 equals a -1. And why do we have to do that? Because if I have a -1 inside my parentheses, inside my absolute value, the absolute value of -1 is 1. And so is the absolute value of 1 is also 1. So we have to solve for two equations here. So let's go ahead and solve these two equations. So first I have to subtract 10 from both sides in the blue equation. Bring down my f, then 1 minus 10 is -9. And so now that is one answer. Again, I have to do it in the red. Now we have to make sure we show our work here because they're not going to be the same f's, so I subtract 10 from both sides again. Now I get f equals -1 minus 10 is now -11. You also have to graph the solution set. So how we graph these, you draw your number line, and I'm going to tell you to put 3 tick marks on that number line. And now go ahead and order them. So I'm going to put -11 over here because as we were moving left, the numbers get smaller. As we were moving right, the numbers get bigger. -10 goes in the middle. -9 goes on the right because it's a bigger number out of all these numbers here. And so now f equals -9. So I'm going to put a point on -9 and fill it in. Also, f equals -11. So I'm going to put a point on -11 and fill it in. And so there's the graph of the solution set. 4. Now we have the absolute value of v minus 2 equals -5. Well, always check first before you solve it. What does the absolute value equal? This absolute value equals a -5. Can an absolute value equal a -5? No, it cannot equal a negative number. An absolute value cannot equal a negative number. So, therefore, here there is no solution. Now we're going to start dealing with some ratios. Looking at number 5, are these ratios equivalent? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can cross multiply and see if they come up with the same numbers on both sides, or you can simplify. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify right now. 7/8 already looks like it's simplified, so look over here at 42 over 48. What can you take out of both the top and the bottom? Well, I know that 42 is divisible by 7. Is 48 divisible by 7? No, it's not. Well, 42 is also divisible by 6. Is 48 divisible by 6? Yes, it is. So 42 divided by 6 is 7. 48 divided by 6 is 8. And so now that we have the same fractions, they are equivalent. So yes, they are equivalent. If they were different fractions, then obviously they would not be equivalent. Now let's go on to solving proportions. I think a lot of you have a good understanding on how to solve proportions from yesterday, but we're still going to go through it. Remember, to solve proportions, we have to cross multiply. So 9 times c equals 4 times 45. Remember, we're multiplying. So 4 times 45 is 180. Now how do we solve? We divide by 9. Divide by 9. So c equals 20. Now careful here, I know there was a problem like this yesterday, but we're going to try it again. And I'm going to write this whole thing out. So when we cross multiply here, we can still cross multiply, even though it's f minus 4. There's going to be just one more step. Let's go ahead and put 4 times f minus 4. And that's going to equal 7 times 8 is 56. Now we distribute this 4 to both things inside the parentheses to get 4f minus 16 equals 56. Now we have a two-step equation on our hands. Add 16 over to the other side to get 4f equals 72. How do we get the f by itself? We have to divide by 4. Divide by 4. So now f equals 18. Final answer. You can always check this if you want. How do you always check this? By putting it in for your variable, for f. Now we're to percent of change, right? Remember, with percent of change, we have change over the original equals percent over 100. This is the equation that we're going to use for percent of change. So first thing we have to do is state whether each percent of change is a percent of increase or decrease. Well, let's go ahead and look at our numbers. Our original is smaller than our new. So if original is smaller than our new, we are increasing our price. So this is going to be an increase right away by looking at it. Now we have to do the first, after that, the next thing we have to do is find our change from those two guys. Positive or negative, we're going to keep the number positive, but we're going to go ahead and subtract them. 125 minus 78 is 47, I believe. Yes, it is. It's 47, right? So now that is going to be my change. So I'm going to put 47 in red. 47 over my original, which is 78, equals my percent, and I'm just going to label it P over 100. Now that you did the hard part, you can do the easy part, which you guys like, is cross multiplying. So now we have 4,700 equals 78p. What do we have to do here? We have to divide by 78, divide by 78. So our percent now, P equals 60% for your final answer. So we have a percent of increase of 60%. Jumping to number 9. Let's look at original to new. Is it a percent of increase or decrease? Our original was 41. We went down to 24, so we have a decrease. So this is a decrease. And what is the change? The change, we subtract them and find out that it's 17. So now using this equation, let's go ahead and plug in our numbers. 17 over the original of 41 equals P over 100. Now what do we have to do? Hopefully you said cross multiply, so let's go ahead and cross multiply, where you get 1,700 equals 41p. We have to divide by 41. We divide by 41. So now P equals roughly 41.4%. percent. The answers that they give you are going to be a percent. The answers that they give you from this proportion is going to be a percent. And so now on number 9, we had a 41.4% decrease. Next, let's go ahead and calculate some tax. Tax, what do we do with tax? Well, tax, does tax make it go up or down? Tax is going to be a percent increase. What we do with these numbers, to find your tax amount, how do we find 7.25% of this bag? Well, we can just go ahead and multiply them to figure out this percent of this bag. So we have $28 times, now we have to be careful when we do it this way, we have to make sure that we move the decimal over 2 places. So we take it times 0.0725, and 28 times 0.725 is 2.1. So now what is 2.1? 2.1 is not our answer, but we have to add it. We have to add it to 28. So we take 28 plus 2.1, and so that is 30.1. And what is 30.1? It's money. We're dealing with money, so this is $30.10. Now with the discount, what do you think you do with the discount? Is that going to be a percent increase or percent decrease? It is going to be a percent decrease. Now we do the same thing that we did with tax. So it's 14, and I'm going to grab a different color. Let's grab red. So it's 14.99 times, be very careful, make sure you change our decimal place, times 0.20. That equals $3 right on the money. Now it's a discount, so do you think you're going to add it or subtract it? Since it's a discount, we're going to subtract it. So we have $14.99 minus 3, which turns into $11.99. So we have $11.99. Last page. Now we're going to solve each equation or formula for the variable that is given to us. So in 10, we want to solve this equation for y. So what I'm going to do is put the y and whatever is attached to it through multiplication or division in a box. Now I'm not going to touch that box until later. How do I get everything else away from that box? Well, here I have to subtract the 3x to the other side, and now bring down what you had in the box. So I'm going to bring this down, and it's a 2y what I had in the box. Now on the other side of the equation you had 9 minus 3x. Now how would you get this 2 away from the y? Well, it's attached through multiplication, so you just have to divide. So we divide both sides by 2, and so 2 divided by 2 is 1, that cancels out, so we're left with a y all by itself, and then we have 9 minus 3x divided by 2 for your final answer. Now all of this would be your final answer. Let's take a look at 11. Again, we are solving for y. The very first thing that I want you to do is just put a box around it, just to give you a mental note that you can't touch what's inside the box until you are done with everything outside of it. Now, what's outside of it is plus n. How do you get that plus n to the other side? You have to subtract it over. So now we have m minus n equals whatever's in the box, 2/5 y. Now how is this 2/5 y attached to the, how is this 2/5 attached to the y? It is attached through multiplication. How do you undo multiplication? Well, we have to divide. So we divide by 2/5, divide by 2/5. So now we have m minus n divided by 2/5 equals y. Now you're almost done, but mathematicians don't like you having a fraction and a fraction. So what do we have to do? When we divide by a fraction, what do we do with fractions? Remember, when we divide, we flip and multiply. So instead of 2/5 now, I'm going to multiply by 5/2 m minus n equals y. You can have this for your answer, or you could have 5 times m minus n all over, hopefully I don't run out of room, 2 equals y. So either two of those answers are suitable. Have a great rest of the day.